for our next mystery in this extravaganza of card magic, I need to look into the future. And by the way, those of you who are wondering, the future happens to be a little bit over this direction, I do believe. You can adjust your television sets if you need to see that direction, but stay with me if you would. Great, I haven't scared you off. In the future, I see a gentleman over here. If you would approach the table, please. I need your help for this mystery. Excellent. I just happen to have a deck of cards. If you would, give those cards a nice shuffle. Right here, mix them up. I want to make sure that those cards are as randomly mixed as possible. No possible way I could have any connection with those cards other than what you're about to see. Excellent, thank you. Before I continue at this point, I'm going to make 2 predictions of the future. Watch my actions closely, if you would. I'm not going to change the order of the cards. I'm just going to look through the cards and make a couple of simple predictions. Let me see. I think I'll do, well, let's see here. This is kind of difficult. Now, that's a good one. Ooh, there's another good one. How about that? They happen to be side by side. My 2 predictions of the future. I'll leave those there where they do not go out of our sight. I have not altered the order of the cards. I have not done any rearranging of the cards. If you would, please take those cards and just deal a few cards into a pile on the table right here. You see, I don't want to use the entire deck. That would be far too many cards. In fact, why don't you take a few out of the center of the pack? Take a few off the bottom of the pack if you like. I want this to be a really, really random selection of cards. And when you feel you have enough cards on the table there, stop. It's up to you. That's enough? Excellent. We'll take these out of play completely. And if you would, take those cards and deal them back and forth into 2 piles, please. That's great. Now let's think about this for a moment. You shuffled the cards to your heart's content. In fact, I asked you to do that because I don't want later to say to yourself, gee, I wish I had shuffled those cards, maybe just a little bit more. So you're happy with the shuffle. You've taken cards off the top of the deck, off the bottom of the deck, out of the middle, a number of places. Here they are into 2 piles, dealt by your hand. I have 2 predictions of the future. Let's take a look and see what these 2 cards just happen to be. My goodness, how about that? Yes, I have looked into the future, and as you can see, my predictions match perfectly. Don't tell anyone how you did that. Please keep it a secret, okay? Thank you. Let's now take a look into the future. This mystery is a very strong mind-reading card trick that uses the following technique. You begin by having your audience shuffle and mix up the cards. They can shuffle the cards all they want. In fact, you begin and make sure, you say, please shuffle those cards. I want you to be absolutely sure that the cards are truly mixed up as much as you want. Once they have done this and given the cards a lot of shuffles, ask if they are satisfied with the amount of shuffling they have done. Once they are, you now take the cards and you tell them, I am merely going to make 2 predictions of the future. Here is what is going on behind the scenes. Remember, you are emphasizing to your audience that you will not change the order of these cards or stack the deck or move anything around. You are just making 2 predictions. Here's what's going on. As I spread the cards between my hands, I am going to spot the top 2 cards of the pack and note what they are. In this case, a black ace and a red 9. Those are the 2 cards I now want to look for in the rest of the pack. Try to be subtle about how you glimpse these cards at the top of the pack, of course. A red 9 and a black ace. I now continue. These cards are facing myself, and I'm looking for, of course, the other black ace, the ace of spades it would be. I would now place this card to the side. That's prediction number 1. And now I'm going to look for the red 9. Well, it just happens to be here. And I would place that card to the side as well. Remind your audience, of course, that you have not rearranged the order of the cards, have I? No, of course not. I have merely made 2 predictions of the future. You now hand the deck of cards back to your audience, and you're going to ask them to deal some cards as you gesture, one at a time off the top of the deck onto the table. So if you would, please do that. Now, you allow them to deal at least the top 2 cards off onto the table, and now you would stop them and say, wait a minute, go ahead and stop for a moment. I'd like you to pull a few cards out of the middle of the deck, placing them on there wherever you like out of the middle. In fact, why don't you take a few cards off the bottom of the deck? Remember, as I'm demonstrating it here, these cards would be in the spectator's hands. They pull a few cards off the bottom. You emphasize, I want you to get a really random grouping of cards here. That's what your audience will believe. So they put as many cards down. You then ask them, is that enough? Great. Place these cards, the rest of the cards, off to the side if you would, out of play. Excellent. Now here's a quick checkpoint, and remember, these 2 cards over here, my predictions, match the 2 cards at the face here. But your audience just doesn't know that. They, in their minds, believe that this is a random grouping of cards. Plus, they don't know what the revelation is that is about to take place. At this point, you would then reiterate to your audience, you shuffled the cards as much as you liked, and you took cards from the bottom, the middle, the top, everywhere out of that pack, a random grouping of cards. Would you go ahead and take those cards and deal them into 2 piles back and forth? Your audience would now take the cards and just deal them back and forth into 2 piles. Notice that the bottom 2, these last 2 cards, will be dealt on top of those 2 piles. Now you can give your audience a quick recap. They shuffled, they took cards at random. You have made 2 predictions. If you now would please turn over the cards, one on top of each of the piles. Your audience will now do this. You are now ready to really get them with a strong revelation. You pick up your 2 cards, looking at them yourself. You say, how about that? And now turn over one of them, dropping it on the ace, and the other, dropping it on the 9. How about that? Into the future, I have looked. Now let's take another quick look at this and back up for a moment. When I am performing this mystery, there are a number of other things that could possibly happen during the course of this. That is the best case scenario. Let's say you have picked up the deck and, for example, you have maybe the 2 red 8s at the top of the pack, like this. What do you do now if those 2 cards are alike? Well, that's no problem. As you look across these cards, apparently making your prediction, and remember, you don't let your audience see the prediction, you can just spread over to the side and you say, there's one, I'll take that card, and do these actions slowly so it doesn't look suspicious. Now remember, there's the other 8 on top, so you're in a perfect position. It's okay if you take it from this end. Now I'm going to be looking for the red 6. So now I would continue on. As I spot it, I continue to kind of look around it. I think that, no, let's try this one. Yes, that's perfect. So there's one way of handling the fact that maybe there were 2 cards alike together. Now you would continue. Of course, remember, emphasizing the randomness of this and completely keeping out of your dialogue anything about what is actually going on. They deal cards onto the table into a pile. They take some from the middle, from the bottom, so on and so forth as before. The rest of these cards go to the side. Now here's another possible thing that could happen. For example, let's say they start dealing the cards onto the table like this, and they start doing as follows. What you do need to do is pay very close attention to the audience and how they are dealing them, watching to see where those 2 bottommost cards end up. If they did, for example, this, I now know that those are my two important cards. So I would ask my audience to then, I would say, if you would just push one of the packs toward me. If they pushed this one toward me, I am ready for my revelation. I would discard these and proceed ahead. If I said, would you push one of the packs toward me, and the audience then pushed this one, I would now take that as if I had meant to do this and drop it away off to the side on the remainder of the cards. Those cards are now out of play, and I would say, here is the remaining pack, and now I would continue for my revelation. That's into the future. Experiment with this. I know you will find it to be one of your best card tricks. It has a terrific effect upon